Welcome to the Productivity Podcast. Diane Whirl, MRI Springboard Marketing Insights Director, joins me again today to give us an update on March's footfall and shopping behaviour. Hi Di, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Simon?
Good, welcome back. So we left the last podcast, I think, end of February stats. It was all looking great. We were talking about the sun was going to start to shine as we entered spring. March's data's out. Did we continue to look good?
No, we didn't, really. March had what we called a sharp shock, and actually footfall declined from February into March by 2.8%, which was very unexpected because actually in previous Februaries it had risen. So, we obviously look back in time and we see what the long-term trend is, not just the COVID period, but we go before the COVID period. And February always tends to continue to rise, but this February it didn't rise. And so consequently, the year-on-year change from 22 to 23 was minimal. It was just 0.7% up. So we haven't really seen much growth, which actually tallies with some of the economic data that's come out today about economic growth across the UK being flat over the last month. So it is quite interesting that footfall is such a good indicator of what's happening economically.
So is this the real kind of start of seeing recession or rumoured recession or the cost of living impacts kick in? Is this what we're seeing? I think, if my mind serves me, I think the weather wasn't great either on quite a few of the weekends, was it?
No, I mean, from a very dry February, which obviously helped footfall, we went to a very wet March, which didn't help footfall. So, I think what we are starting to see is this long-awaited impact on households of the cost of living crisis. It's been underlying there, but households have been supported a lot by government support, and some of that is ending now. So that's starting to impact consumers. Also, we had Easter in the offing, obviously in last week, and I think people were holding back on making trips to stores and destinations with the aim of going out over Easter once schools have broken up. And that's exactly what happened. We saw big rises in footfall in the week leading up to the Easter weekend, which clearly meant that people were making those trips that they put off during March.
So some of this could be deferred.
Yep.
Into Easter, some of it weather, some of it cost of living. Were there any particular trends when you start to look at kind of high streets, retail parks, or was it relatively flat overall?
Well, I mean, high streets and shopping centres, they all saw decreases, but it was mainly high streets and shopping centres saw the month-on-month decrease. Retail parks, always relatively resilient because of the food store element. We tend to go to our retail parks to shop for food. 90% of food spend is in the store still. Even I think a little bit more than that. So despite, people talking about online delivery, most people go to food stores to buy their food. So that supports retail parks. And of course, retail parks offer free parking and they offer coffee shops now. So they are very appealing destinations for shoppers. High streets and shopping centres, of course, have challenges around car parking cost, getting there. And also a lot of the hybrid working, trend now means that we're not actually in our town centres as much. So inevitably they are more vulnerable. And a lot of shopping centres, of course, are located in town centres, so they suffer the same dynamic issues. So yes, and the discretionary spend element, shoppers rein back on things they don't need to have when, of course, things are tight. And that's what was happening in March.
Yeah, so we started the first 2 months looking good, bit of doom and gloom in March. So any predictions as we move kind of through Easter? We've obviously got the Easter holidays, then we've got quite a few bank holidays in a row, haven't we, with the coronation this year? Is that going to give us a bit of a bounce, or will it depend on the weather or economics or a mix of everything?
Well, it's always a mix of everything. I think, the good news is that May is offering us these bank holidays. So it's going to be great in terms of people going out and making the most of the time they've got off. So that will help footfall. Of course, it will be great. Not so much if it pours with rain every day. That is going to depress it because we've seen a direct correlation between rain and footfall. But people having time off work with families and friends, it will support footfall through May. I think spending will be impacted. I think people may go on trips, but the extent to which they're buying will be reduced. Tesco released their results today, and although they saw an increase in sales, the volume of products bought has decreased because people are being more careful. So that's happening generally. I think people actually, which is good news for the hospitality sector, are actually putting more time and making more trips and going to hospitality more than they were. So actually the spend that they perhaps aren't buying on product, they're spending in restaurants and bars, which is great for the hospitality sector because they've had a really tough time. So May is going to be hopefully insulated. I think we'll start to see another decrease June, July, August. It's going to be tough in the summer because people will be careful and they'll be conscious of the lead up to winter.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the other stats when you mentioned Tesco's there that Asda had gone from being the cheapest supermarket to now one of the most expensive, and I'm sure there are plans in place to combat that, but just shows how fierce it is out there in terms of, if you're top of the charts one week, then everybody else is competing for that sale, that price point, that way of getting you in the store because the pound's precious.
Absolutely. And of course, shoppers are much more discretionary now. Shoppers will shop around across the different food stores for different products to get the best deal. Whereas, a few years ago, we would have just gone into one food store and bought everything there. But people are saying, no, I buy this in Asda and I go to Tesco for this and I go for Aldi for this. And they make the effort to do that to save money. So that makes it much more competitive for the food stores. It's always been tough for food. But when you've got this cost of living crisis, margins are driven right down. And of course, we haven't had high inflation for years, and that's really putting a pressure on all the food stores in terms of their operating costs.
Yeah, as a generation, I know kind of my older kids that have never known interest rates above 0.5%, and then for it to be 3-4%, they're really struggling to comprehend now that's possible. Great if you've got savings. Clearly, if you've got debt, not so good at all. So I think we shouldn't forget there is a whole wave of the younger generation. I'm sounding old saying this, aren't I? That have never experienced anything like this in their lifetime.
No, absolutely. And I mean, to be honest, I have, because I'm of the same age group as you, Simon, but, you forget very quickly what a high inflation is like and living in an inflationary environment is like. And I think most recently we've seen this big ramping up of food prices that we haven't seen for decades. And it affects all generations, particularly the elderly, of course, and particularly the ones on lower incomes, where there's a greater proportion of household income is spent on food and fuel. So it is a real culture shock for people. And in some ways, people actually say, well, actually, it's not any more expensive to go out for a meal because all the hospitality operators are competing on price. And so that's helping in some ways the hospitality sector. But it is really tough. And of course, high inflation rates relatively. I remember when inflation rates were 12-15%. So for me, they don't seem high at all. But as you say, for the younger generation, they are high and they make a big difference on mortgage costs. And so that inevitably has an impact in terms of everything. And footfall is a really good indicator of that because most spending is still in store. So if people want to go shopping or buy things, they will go out. And so you can look at footfall as an indicator of economic activity, which is why our data is used by the ONS, actually, because they recognise that footfall reflects economic activity.
Okay. So on a brighter note, we will both be at the Retail Tech Show 26th, 27th of April in Olympia. You guys have got a stand. Do you want to tell us about what you're looking forward to and anything you're doing at the show?
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Last year we did it and it was an amazing event. It was the first face-to-face event we'd done since COVID. And I think everyone who attended, and it's free to attend, by the way. So anyone out there who wants to come along, just register online and get a ticket. You can come along and see all the latest tech in retail. It's really interesting. It's really lively. Lots of really good discussions we had with people. Obviously, we're now part of MRI software. So we have a dual stand now with a different branding. So don't expect to see black and orange. Expect to see the blues and the lime greens and the whites. But please come on and look at us and talk to us and hear all about our latest tech because we've got, we've advanced our tech in the last few years. We count footfall, but we don't need to put counters in anymore. We can use CCTV and convert CCTV images to footfall, which is great. We do demographics, so we can look at the age, gender, and sentiment of customers. We can look at movement and dwell around store. So lots we can do. And of course, I'm actually going to be delivering a paper at the session on Thursday morning, 11:30, on footfall trends. And we also we also present capsule insight sessions on the stand. So come along and hear about the latest trends in footfall.
Excellent. Yeah, and likewise, we've got a stand again. So great show last year. Good to see you and lots of other partners and lots of new and old clients. So yeah, I think we're going to be talking about our apps to capture the data and capturing data, benchmarking. We've just launched our training academy. So again, come over to see us. I think our stands are within eyeshot of each other. So if you come and see, we'll come and see us. We'll send you see Di and vice versa.
Yes.
And check out Di's session on the 27th at 11. Always some interesting insights and things to take away. Certainly, if you are anybody that's got a physical presence, whether that be retail, hospitality, in any venue, there's always something to take away.
Yeah, and also we're both actually within shouting distance of the champagne bar, which always is a good thing.
Excellent. Yeah, always makes me laugh. Somebody sponsors it now. If you ever remember who can sponsor it, then that's great marketing. But there's always a free drink at the end of the day, which is good. Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming back on for this one. We'll be back together next month. So we'll look at how we fared over Easter, which will be interesting to see if we can kind of reverse the trend from March. But as ever, Di, amazing insight and conversation. And I'll see you at the Retail Expo.
Look forward to it, Simon.